you'll be hearing from protesters across the country who really don't like lockdowns or anything that hints of a continued slowdown and sheltering in their homes, whether those are initiated by Democratic or Republican governors. But the drill is the same right now. The protests continue because a lot of people are saying, we think we can balance this out. Enough already with some of these stringent provisions that in many of these states have been in effect for the better part of a month right now. Rich Edson in Annapolis, Maryland, where they're also getting quite agitated. Hey, Rich.
Hey, good morning, Neil. And we're just a couple of blocks from the Maryland State House here, where protest organizers say they want folks to fill up their gas tanks, stay in their cars, stay at a distance, and make a lot of noise. That's supposed to happen about an hour from now here. Protests to try to reopen some of the state of Maryland. They got an online petition, about 1,500 signatures, where the group also says, quote, Marylanders are struggling daily to pay bills, maintain family unity, ensure their children's well-being, and remain connected. We call upon Governor Hogan to hear his constituents and immediately begin the responsible reopening of our state. They say they appreciate the significant health concerns here, but the governor has just been too heavy-handed. Meanwhile, Larry Hogan says he understands what the protesters are going through, but he says now is just not the time to reopen Maryland.
Right now, we have climbing numbers. We're watching them every single day. I'm a lifelong small business guy. There's nothing more important to me than getting our economy back, getting people to work. We also have to make sure, and we're following the advice from our federal partners on making sure that we've got things flattening out and going down rather than going up.
And the governor has also recently announced that schools will be closed in Maryland through May 15th. He says the state is working on a plan to reopen the government gradually, and that they hope to announce more details on that next week. Neil?
All right, Rich Edson, thank you very, very much. We know governors who are dealing with these stay-at-home provisions, even those who enacted it fairly recently. How would you like that and dealing with Mother Nature and tornadoes and all sorts of other messes like that? Imagine then being the governor of Mississippi. Governor Tate Reeves joins me right now on that. Governor, I know last week those horrific tornadoes, 34 were killed in the region, I believe, more than a dozen in your beautiful state. How are things there now?
Well, we're up to 14 fatalities now. We've got several other people that are in critical condition in the hospital. It's been a very challenging week, as you can imagine. And what we've found out is from the National Weather Service, the two tornadoes that hit basically the same path, almost an hour apart. One of them was now confirmed to have been the widest tornado in Mississippi history, the third widest tornado in the history of the United States. And they stayed on the ground for approximately 89 miles. And so significant damage on top of dealing with this coronavirus crisis.
How did you juggle both at the time?
Well, the reality is we knew that with the tornadoes coming in, we had to put the protection of our people first and foremost. We did allow people to go to safe rooms. We did it in a responsible way. We made sure that we handed out masks. We made sure that we had hand sanitizer. And we made sure that we had individuals, to the extent possible, maintain social distancing in those safe rooms. We felt we had to do that, and it was the right thing to do.
Now, on the virus, Governor, the latest figures I see is you have just shy of 3,800 cases in your state, 140 deaths. How is the so-called ARC looking on this, or whether hospitalizations are improving or the trend there? What's the latest?
Well, I will tell you, we've been watching it very closely, and what we're seeing now is we're not going to have a major spike. It doesn't appear. Ours is going to be a plateau and a relatively long plateau. We had 270 new cases one day this week. We had 270 cases the next day. We had approximately 170 cases the day after that, and then 170 cases the day after that. And so what we as a country have to understand is that every single model and every single analysis is not the same. As you move from state to state, and quite frankly, from region to region within each state, things are very different. And when we talk about reopening our economy and reopening our country, we have to understand that in America, there is not a one-size-fits-all. Yesterday, I took action to begin the process of reopening small businesses. We now are going to allow our small business owners that can take phone calls and internet orders and deliver them curbside service like many of our restaurants are doing now. we're going to let them open back up. And that's something that's critically important because in this country, you have a lot of conversation about non-essential versus essential. But what I can tell you is in Mississippi, if you're a small business owner and you have 5 or 6 or 7 employees, that business may not be essential to you and me, but it's pretty daggum essential to that person who owns it and very essential to that worker who works there. And so we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we protect Mississippians, but we've got to get our economy moving again.
Yeah, I believe you had noted that there's been a 14% increase in unemployment. That's not unique to your fine state, but you also have opened up lakes and beaches for individual use. But there are still a number of your residents, sir, who are chafing at any of these sheltering provisions. And you were one of the later entrants in this. And yet you're juggling that with what we're showing now, that better than 22 million Americans have already applied for unemployment benefits, and that is likely to continue jumping. Are you worried that keeping these provisions in place, even limiting some of them, is just going to make that jobless situation worse?
Well, there's no question that I'm worried about this current economic plight of our land and of Mississippians. We have approximately 140 fatalities from the coronavirus, and we have approximately 140,000 Mississippians that have filed for unemployment insurance over the last 4 weeks alone. We've had 140 times more people file in the last 4 weeks than filed the week before this all started. And so I'm extremely concerned about it. And I know that every single day that we don't get our economy rolling again, it's going to be more and more painful on the back end. We believe very strongly that we also have a challenge in this state and in this country. You cannot ask people to shelter in place for weeks and weeks and months on end. There has to be a short period of time where you flatten that curve, where you ensure that your hospitalization rates are adequate, and you have the adequate resources you need to protect every single person that can get quality care, make sure that they get that quality care.
Well, also quality testing. Right now, Governor Cuomo, your counterpart in New York, was saying that the state can't just whip up these tests, that the federal government has to help. There's been a back and forth as to who's responsible for those tests. Where do you stand on this? And do you have the resources yourself to handle testing, which apparently will be crucial in deciding in one state after another when to open up?
Well, testing is definitely very important. But I'll tell you, in Mississippi, we're not sitting around waiting on the federal government to solve our problems. In our state, we actually worked with our research universities. We worked with those researchers at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. We've worked with the scientists at the University of Southern Mississippi. And we actually, if you look at our numbers, if you take away those states that the federal government have come in and spent significant resources helping them test, Mississippi is actually in the top third of actually number of tests done per 1 million population. We tested 3 times more, for instance, than South Korea did. We've tested almost 50,000 Mississippians. We're taking it upon ourselves to do everything we can to expand testing. We need to continue to do that. We know the ingenuity of the American people. We know the innovation of our pharmaceutical companies, and we know how much money, time, effort, and resources are going into putting more tests in the marketplace. We need that, and we'll do everything we can. But we can't wait until there's a cure to this. We can't wait until every single person can get tested every single day to open up our economy. We have serious mental health issues going on in this country right now, and we also have serious economic crisis going on in this country right now.
No, you're quite right. It is a heck of a balance, and it's a tough job. Governor, thank you very much for taking the time today. Be well.
Thank you, Neil. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, same here, sir. In the meantime, a lot of focus on sports, and when we get back to it, you know about baseball and delayed whenever it comes back. They hope to let even a truncated baseball season happen. Football, for the time being, that starts in the fall, and it looks like that's still happening. But even Dr. Anthony Fauci has said they might even there be playing the empty stadiums. Is that really the case? Joe Theismann, the former Washington Redskins great, I consider him one of the best of all time, joins us right now. Joe, good to see you. How do you think that would work? I mean, we're a long way from the start, actually not too long away from the start of the football season, but that it might go and they might get it revved up, but without fans in the stands. I can't see that. What about you?
You know, Neil, it's interesting. I'm glad you're safe and everybody listening and watching is safe as well. And oddly enough, in 1974, during a strike, I was a rookie with the Washington Redskins, and we played at RFK Stadium. The stadium capacity was 55,000. There were 3,000 people there. It felt like an empty stadium. It's an entirely different feeling. But the television networks also have a great say in what they want to try and do. I mean, you're going to have players in a locker room, not just the people in the stands next to one another, but you've got players interacting with one another. You've got teams interacting on the field. And I'm hoping that we're going to be able to get football started. I think everybody is sort of holding out. I know baseball's on hold, hockey's on hold, basketball's on hold, but football may have that opportunity to be that one bright spot that everybody is looking forward to 3-4 months down the road.
You know, a lot of people, whether it's baseball or whether you see something in football that you don't want to endanger the players and those who work with them and around them as well. Do you feel, from the people you talk to, Joe, that they feel comfortable that we're past the medical emergency right now?
I don't think we're past the medical emergency. It seems like every day we're sort of learning something new about the virus. We're learning about the vaccines. We're learning about something that can test people in a very short period of time. I mean, for anybody to sit and say that they have any definitive answers for what's going on, I think would be foolish. As far as football goes, I really believe that everybody's planning now. You know, the draft is coming up this week. So this sort of starts football season. When the draft gets going, people start thinking about it. Coaches start preparing. Last week, teams were able to basically meet with the players. Now they can only do it virtually. So it's a different type of an environment. I think, to me, a month from now, we're going to have a whole lot better idea of what the picture will look like in late August or even September. And what do you do with the preseason games? Well, how much time do you need to get guys ready? You know, there will be interaction. You know, I was just listening to the governor of Mississippi. People are anxious to get out, and they understand the risk. And I think as Americans, we've done an unbelievable job to try and do everything we can to flatten this curve and have it even decline. But now everybody's frustrated, Neil. Everybody's frustrated. Now we want to get outside. Now we want to go do things. And I think now, for at least the next couple of weeks, I think we have to be smart and see exactly what's going on. Because every day we get to buy one more day for somebody to come up with something that can help a person that has it or maybe even prevent it.
Well said. Joe Theismann, thank you very, very much. At least I have my Joe Theismann highlight reels to get me through this. So I do have that. So thank you very much.
They're short, Neil.
Joe Theismann, I'll let exactly, not quite. In the meantime, here, you know, eventually this draft they're playing, the NFL draft, that's going to be virtual. It's going to be weird, but you know, people are coming up with inventive ways to keep all of this going. In the meantime, China, you heard about how they sharply revised up the number of deaths in Wuhan. And yet the total death count there, a little more than 80,000, is some wondering, that can't be. That can't be at all. What's up with that after this?